And we are back for another edition of the Cowbell podcast. We've taken a little bit of a time out, about a week and a half or so, or maybe a little bit longer, because we're all recovering from Ultra Trail Australia. Of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Kelvin Yip. How are you, Kelvin?
Yeah, very well, Dave. Back to the game.
Back in the game,
Yeah.
and you're fully recovered from your miler, mate?
Yes. But I still keep thinking about it. Yes, it's definitely is a good experience. And maybe I may enter again next year. Like, try to do a bit better time than 42 hours.
Are you still seeing Hello Kitty?
Yeah, thanks God, no more. Like,
No, you're not seeing Hello Kitty anymore. That's a good thing. And tonight, well, we're joined by, well, another UTA alumni now, I guess you can call that, in Lisa Sherman. And many of you will know that name because in our previous podcast with Mel Warman from Boobs on the Run and Mother's Day Classic, happened to drop Lisa's name several times,
mm,
um, even as her most inspiring runner and friend. And I can also call Lisa a good friend. We've known each other now and her husband Grant for a long time. And so we live not too far from each other here in Sydney. But Lisa has got an incredible ultra and trail running journey, and we're going to delve into that tonight. But the pedigree that is now uh, goes with that ultra and trail running journey is now Lisa is, well, firstly, she's a qualified nutritionist.
mm.
She's also a qualified run coach. She's also a race director. And she's a mentor to many, many, many runners out there, both uh, from the nutrition side of things, but also the coaching side of things with Boobs on the Run, Rejuve runners here in Centennial Park, to name a few. Lisa, you've got a very, well, glowing resume, some might say. Welcome to the Cowbell.
Thank you. Very excited to chat with you both on.
Yeah, we have as we're evolving this little journey that we're on, we're meeting some incredible people, and Lisa, you are definitely one of those. So Kelvin and I, we do know you through other areas, but we would love for you to share with us a little bit about yourself with our guests, your own running journey, and we'll see what rabbit holes we can crawl down and find out about you.
Thanks. God, where to begin? So it's funny these days, I don't shy away from talking about age because I think getting older is awesome. I've just turned 51. And, sometimes I get asked, how long have I been running? And I actually have to think back, and it's, over 30 years is actually how long I've been running. Certainly haven't been doing ultras for that long. But yeah, definitely have a long history of running. And I guess for me, the two things that absolutely I love to talk about and they're just my passions is nutrition and running. And the fact that I get to combine the two of them together on a regular basis, and to do what I love is really awesome. So, yeah, I mean, that's the the very quick version. In terms of, I was saying to a group of ladies yesterday with Boobs on the Run, we've got a group of ladies training for the Sydney Marathon. So we're out on our long run yesterday, and we were talking about, what fires you up with running. And for me, it is the fact that when I'm running, all I have to do is run. And that's the simplicity of it. And I absolutely love that. And I think when I think about my journey into ultra running, it's that each time I go out for a really long run, that's all I have to do is the simplicity of running. And, think back to the most recent UTA 100, which was my second time doing that 100. It was just all I had to do that day was to just get out and just forward progress. I just had to move forward, and whatever would happen on the day, the weather and mud and everything that we knew
Yes.
was going to come up, it didn't matter because I was just being able to move. And I really love that simplicity of it. So, yeah.
Now, I mean, and I am going to touch on this, and I know it's easy to talk with people that are friends. And so we started hanging out at Rejuve Runners there in around about, I think if I go back about 2016, 2017.
Yeah.
And but at that point was the big stuff, the longer distances, the ultras and everything. Was that in because and you had just started your study then into nutrition.
Mm.
Had that entered your mind at that point, or was that a thing?
It was starting to. So as I said, I've been running for a long time, and often, as for most, it started off with the 5K, the 10K, a couple of the city to surfs, and so on. And then I've got a 20-year-old son, and when he was born, when he was about 2, got back into running again as a way of, just some me time. And very quickly, so that was when he, sort of 18 years ago, I sort of started looking into the more of the half marathon distance. And I can distinctly remember 2013 finishing the Sydney, what was then the Blackmores half marathon in that September timeframe, and looking at the marathon runners. And at that point, you used to go over the bridge at Hyde Park. And I remember looking at the marathoners and just thinking, oh, I so want to be one of those. I want to be someone doing a marathon. And at the time, the marathon just seemed like just such a big distance, like just incredible. And so I started training for marathon. Unfortunately, got injured, had to put off the first. So the first marathon didn't actually happen till 2015. And at that point, I thought, the marathon, like that was amazing. And I then had this goal of I wanted to run every marathon in the major cities in in Australia, I mean. So, ticked off Canberra, ticked off Sydney, ticked off the Gold Coast, had done Hobart, was planning on doing Melbourne. And then the Great Ocean Road one had always interested me. And I looked at the Great Ocean Road and I went, oh, it's actually 45. I was like, that's a bit more than a marathon. And then suddenly I'm thinking, hang on a minute. And then when I went to sign up, I realized they had a 60-kilometer. And I'm like, oh, that's even more interesting. And that was back in 2017. And so I signed up for the 2018 60K at the Great Ocean Road. And so that was my very first marathon, ultra marathon. And I can actually remember finishing the Melbourne Marathon in 2017 and thinking, holy crap, I've got to run another 18 Ks, 7 months' time or whatever it was, the Great Ocean Road 60K. How am I going to do this? And I did it. And after that, I was like, okay, this is cool. Not sure I need to go further, but I love that I have been able to go further. And I sat with that for a little bit. And it wasn't long before I then started looking at ultras. And I haven't signed up to too many marathons. It's usually ultras that I've signed up for since, unless I tend to use the shorter races as training runs these days. But yeah, I think back in 2016 when I joined Rejuve Runners, and that was my first time actually joining a running group. All prior to that, all my running was done solo. And I remember sitting down with a friend and he was like, why don't you join a running group? Like, I think you'd get a lot out of it. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I'm so used to training solo and, just taking programs off the web and all the rest. He's like, no, give it a go. And so I Googled running groups in Centennial Park because that's where I live. And Rejuve Runners was the first one that popped up, and had a chat with Greta, and she was amazing and, a wealth of knowledge, and went along. And yeah, the rest is history. I really got a lot out of running with others, got to meet people like Dave and and others.
You were way more disciplined than I was, let me tell you.
Actually, I think my husband Grant met you first, and
Yeah,
then
it's true.
it wasn't long before we connected as well. And yeah, I think, from then on, I still do running on my own. I do a lot of runs on my own. It's always hard to find people to do long runs with you sometimes when you're doing the really long stuff. But I absolutely value the connection that comes with running and the community that is around running. And I feel very, very privileged that I'm part of many different communities across Sydney and outside of Sydney as well with running. And, I just, everything that it's brought to me. And yes, I wasn't studying, I'd only just started studying my nutrition at the time when I joined Rejuve, and very quickly, I got qualified and very quickly saw that there was such a role to play with nutrition and performance and recovery and your running. And I really think it's something that not everyone focuses on, or those that do maybe not necessarily enough. And I think it's a really, really critical component to our running journeys. Yeah.
So Lisa, like I think looks like you start your running journey as a road runner, right? Like so you're not necessarily like as a trail runner. So at what point you sort of like discover, wow, people will actually run on the mountain. Like the road is not flat anymore. Like
And
yeah.
actually, and this sort of shows some of the history. Dave actually took me on my very first trail run.
Oh, really?
There you
Woohoo!
go. And you're right, Kelvin. And I'm sure Dave can remember me saying, "You will never, ever, ever get me on a trail. I'm a
Yep.
road runner, and that is it." But then I'd heard about this run called the 6 Foot Track, and
Yep.
I was like, okay, so if I do that, I've got to get a qualifier for it. So it was, well, what could I use as a qualifier? And so obviously hanging around people like Dave too much. Like, okay, well, let's do Coastal Classic. And so yes, and in fact, I ran Coastal Classic. I didn't even have trail shoes. Like I remember that first run, with Dave doing the first part of the Coastal Classic course, and I didn't even have trail shoes. And in fact, and I did the run without trail, the actual event. But interestingly, yeah, never looked back. And I love trail running, but I still love road running as well. So I'm happy. I actually don't mind what the surface is. I really enjoy track as well. So I don't mind what the surface is these days.
Because when you went off and did the that Great Ocean Road Ultra, I remember you training for that at the time, and the work and the discipline that you put into that event. And obviously it was a grueling event because it was road. It was a road ultra. And it threw in some pretty gnarly hills down there near the Otways or wherever it was down along there. And then I think you, from memory, you came out of that and you actually were injured out of that event based on the fact that an ultra on the road, what you're putting your body through at that time. But yeah, when you did say that you'll never get me on the trail, and even as only recently your husband Grant has only just got on the trail. Well, we won't talk about Grant too much, but he used to call trail running glorified bushwalking. But yeah, I think he's come around a little bit in that. But I guess you touched there on the community involvement and being part of that, the running group in there in Centennial Park. Your evolution then in running, and I don't mean just your own personal running, but your involvement in the world of running, the community of running, to where you are now. You are well and truly, well, you're drowning yourself in everything running, and I mean that in a sense, in a good sense, in that because you quickly saw that your study in nutrition and everything like that was something that you could then apply to your own personal running journey, but other people around you. So explain that then in terms of, or tell us how that then launched, not just the nutrition side of it, but then that launched you into the different groups and the different things that you're doing. Because you started speaking to different groups, you started presenting to different groups. And then we'll progress on from there because then as we touched on, there's the race director stuff, there's the board man or on the board of Ortra and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, how did that elevate you into that community and your passion for running?
And I think, well, I mean, I think that you sort of touched on it there. I think because I think a lot of the time, I'm a big believer in we can't be what we can't see. And so I think for me, because I have the background in nutrition and the study in that, but I'm also a runner and I absolutely live and breathe what what I study, what I've studied and how I what I talk about. So, I implement, I really do focus on what I eat. I'm very protective around my sleep, for example, and so on, because I know the benefit that it gives me to do this thing that I absolutely love to do, which is running. And so I put the focus on that. So I think from that, the passion I have for that and just, I live and breathe what I talk about has given me the confidence to then approach others and I get asked often, I'm back, in the past, I've been asked questions from people, or, how are you able to do the kilometers you do, or how come you can back up the next day for a run, or whatever it might be, or, what are you eating to fuel your runs and things like that. And so I've always shared my knowledge and just grown confidence from that. And so been able to branch out and chat with others about it. I think it's, yeah, I mean, and I think from that, it was very much, my home to start with was very much around Rejuve runners. And then met the lovely Mel, Mel Warman from Boobs on the Run, through a social gathering with another Rejuver. And, got chatting to Mel and, was very inspired by what, Boobs on the Run and the community she had created. And at the time, I had been thinking about, so this is going back to 20, end of 2019, I think, or beginning of 2020. And, I was thinking about, well, if I've got the nutrition space and I love running myself, I wonder if I look at getting some formal, or some training in run coaching as well. And maybe then I could combine the two. So, being able to talk to people, because I would have people come to me for nutrition advice, but then go, oh, so what do you do plan wise? Or, I'm thinking of doing this long run, should I do that? And I didn't want to go outside my scope of practice. So I looked at making sure I had the qualification around run coaching as well. And then, yeah, developed a connection with Mel. And once I had done my Athletics Australia recreational run coaching, got back in touch with Mel, and we've just formed a really lovely friendship. And the community, the Boobs on the Run community, is just incredible. And again, I feel I, I've been a part of a number of people's journeys through Boobs on the Run. Not just myself, all of the run leaders, and I am continually inspired by the women that I get to run with there. And regardless of what distance they're looking to do, or whether they're new to running or have been previously running, it's just so inspiring to see women gaining strength from running and being around other women and connecting. It's huge, the confidence that comes from that, and really helps to fuel my own running as well, I would say. So
Awesome.
Yeah, and you can see in the community where I mean, look, I've been part of that, so you can see in the community what influence you've had on that. I mean, even down to on your on your Instagram page, sharing your salad recipes or your and your things like that as well. But you can see the inspiration that you've had there and across the board, and that's why you're obviously well respected now in that area, not just within those specific groups, but outside of that. You've spoken at many different running events and so on and so forth with your nutrition cap on, but also the fact that you have that experience in running. The it What was interesting, I guess, early on though, is and we still do, and there's nothing wrong with this. And I'm going to go off on a little tangent, but obviously, while running is a big part of our lives, also being social in these groups is a big part of our lives, and what comes with that. Now, I'm not saying we used to go out and party, but we used to enjoy a drink and things like that as well together. I know that for you, you've made some decisions for yourself around your own health and around your own diet. Obviously, again, being a nutritionist and things like that. What have you learned from that over the years in terms of how that applies to your running journey, but to now what you're I'm not saying preaching, that's not the right word, but the message that you're getting out there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that, yeah, I've definitely made some changes over the last couple of years. I no longer drink alcohol, and I haven't drunk alcohol for over 2 years now. And, yes, I used to enjoy a glass of wine or, a couple of glasses of wine on occasion, or a beer or so. But yeah, I think things just, for me, and, I don't haven't, I'm not saying what I do is what everyone else should do, but I think sometimes you just have to look back and have a look and sometimes evaluate things in your life. And, a couple of years ago, I sort of looked at alcohol and thought, is my relationship with alcohol serving me anymore, or serving my running, or just my general life? And I decided it wasn't. And, so I don't drink anymore. Do I think, has my running gotten Am I doing more with my running now because of not drinking? I don't know. I never missed a run. I was always the one that was still out there the next day. If we'd had a social occasion or something, like, I would still get out and run. So I don't know but I think coming back to sort of the question is that I also think everyone needs to do what's right for them. And one of the biggest things, like, I can't tell you the number of times people say, but what should I eat, or what is the right thing for me to eat, either for my running or for better sleep or to lose weight, or, whatever the thing is that they're trying to do. And I always will say it's what's right for you, because ultimately, like, we are all individuals. We all have completely different, makeups or stresses in our life or environment or different things going on. And we do need to work out what makes sense for us from a nutrition. And so, when I'm working with individuals around their nutrition and running, whether it's coming up with a strategy for what they're going to fuel their long runs with or fuel their race with, I get them to try lots of different things and, settle in on what makes sense for them. And, I don't, we've got general guidelines, but that doesn't mean everyone has to follow that exact same thing. It's really about working out what's right for you. And people will often hear me, I'm always talking about N=1. I'm constantly, constantly experimenting on myself as well. But I think, I just think sometimes we need to try things, and sometimes we don't realize that we actually will feel better once we've tried something. We often feel that the state we're in, that's the state that we need to be in. And we don't realize that, maybe if I get an extra half hour's sleep every night, I go from feeling kind of, might be a 5 out of 10 energy, and I suddenly go to a 7 out of 10 energy every day, like just that small little change. So yeah, or likewise food wise or whatever it might be. So I think lots of little changes done consistently can lead to some really big changes. And as I said, I think it's an individual thing as well, though. And I think that coming back to the running, we spend an awful lot of money for a sport that they say all you need is a pair of shoes. Although in the Boobs on the Run community, we say, a good pair of shoes and a good supportive bra. We do spend a lot of money on our sport, whether that's, training or entry fees or travel to races, or or just the physical time spent out logging the Ks and so on. So we want to make sure that we're getting the most out of it, and that because we should feel good when we run, right? Like, we should feel good, and we should feel good after a run. And if we can make it more enjoyable by fueling ourselves properly, then I think that's a really a good win.
So Lisa, do you have like so you obviously you have the nutrition side, you have the running coach side. So do you find most of the runner come to you because of the nutritions or more that they want to find a coach that have that experience? Like
a bit of both. It's a bit
yeah.
of both. Yeah, definitely. And I think, I've certainly found that for me, having the experience I have in a few different areas of running, as in different distances or different style of running, and so as in whether it's a track ultra or some road marathon, whatever it might be, trail, that sort of thing. I think that helps as well because I can talk from my own experience. But I'd like to think I'm also not always saying, well, this is how I do it, so this is how you should do it. It's like, well, I can tell you about my experience, but let's find what works for you best. Yeah. But I've got some clients that have both nutrition and run coaching from me. I've got just some run coaching. I've got some nutrition. Like it varies. So
Yeah.
it just depends on what someone's after.
Yeah. Nice.
At least I certainly wasn't trying to paint a picture there before. Yeah, I guess the only thing that was because I see that as an inspiration, and yeah, I've touched on it already in terms of the discipline that you apply to your trade is aspirational and both worthy. And so I was only asking those questions in terms around your own experience and then maybe how other people can take away from that. Because as you say, it's all individual. Now, look, there's so many areas that we want to, as I said, a few rabbit holes here. It was COVID, I believe. I think I can't remember the exact year. You come to a couple of us that you ran with and said, "There's this thing, and it's called a backyard ultra, and it started with this guy Lars, and we knew who Lars was, um, and and they're doing one in Brisbane." And I've signed up for it, and it's 6.7 blah 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 k's on the hour every hour, and we're all like, "What?" We're all like, "What is this craziness you're talking about?" And you'd started training for it. Now you'd already done a couple of track ultras at this point. Now COVID got in the way and made a bit of a mess of that. So instead of and long, you can probably fill in the gaps here, but obviously, unfortunately, because of the lockdown laws between the states here in New South Wales and Queensland, and obviously Victoria, you couldn't travel up there for the event. So you decided instead of giving it away and going, "Oh, well, next time, I'm still going to embark on this." So tell us, well, how did that unfold, and then what did that start in your mind? Because since then you've gone on to do not just many of these, well, you now are a race director for one of these. Yeah. So what did that spark in your mind and what spurred you on for that?
That was just such an awesome, awesome time. And I think it really has helped shape who I am as a runner and my part, being part of the running community. And I think, yeah, I had at the time that I heard about Backyard Ultra, there weren't too many in Australia. It was very new, and I remember the running in our circle when I was explaining what I was training for. I got a lot of very quizzical, like I have no idea what you are talking about, sort of looks and so on. And yes, I was training for it was the Clint Eastwood up in Brisbane, held in August, and it was 2020. And I trained my butt off for that one. And, when I think back to that first ultra I did, and you touched on it, Dave, you mentioned the discipline and so on, like one of the things I have always loved, and I still do, and I enjoy the process of training. I just enjoy training and, just getting the plan, working with my coach. I work with Isabel Tate from Peak Endurance. She's my coach, and we sit down and she air and everything, and I just love all that process. So for that backyard, that Clint Eastwood, I was doing simulation runs. Like I would go to the Centennial Park and I would sit with my car and I would on the hour go and do 6.7K, and then I'd come back, sit, and I'd have something to eat, and people would look at me and they'd be like, "What are you doing?" And I did that in various places around the eastern suburbs, and I was so ready for this race. And then 2 weeks before we were due to leave, they shut the borders on us, and I was heartbroken. I was literally, I just felt like, as so many of us were at that time, races getting closed and whatnot because of COVID, and I was just gutted. But very quickly, I was like, you know what? I don't need the actual race to do it. I can go and do it on my own. And so Grant and I came up with, a course to use for it, and worked out logistically where we would put the car and all this sort of stuff. And I literally just thought it was just he and I. And the Clint Eastwood back then actually started at 1 a.m. in the morning, because at the time they thought it was the best. It was kind of the way that you would hopefully get more people to that 24-hour sort of milestone. So if you started at 1 a.m. So I was like, well, I'm going to do it on the same day, and I'm going to start at 1 a.m. and I'm going to run through the street. And my husband Grant was like, I'm not having you run through, because we mapped out a route in Centennial Park. He's like, I'm not having you run through Centennial Park on your own at 1 a.m. in the morning and on the hour. I was like, I'll be fine. Anyway, little did I know that when I turned up there at, 10 to quarter to 1 on the Friday morning, ready to run my first loop, there were 4 people from Rejuve Runners, our community at the time. And I think it was also, I think we had the White Fence Track Club was going at the time,
Yeah.
Adam Belasty. And I was like, what are you guys doing here? And they're like, we've come to run with you. And I was like, what? And yeah, so they'd all organized this behind. And, I ended up running for 17 loops that day, and I did not run a single loop on my own. And there were various times, like, people just came and went all day. And this was a Friday. It wasn't even the weekend. Like, it wasn't a Saturday or Sunday. It was a Friday. And granted, a few people were working from home in those days, but it was just amazing. And to me, like, that was our running community, like, came together. And I got to do, and it's still, I think I only just took that one of those pictures down off my Facebook profile page just recently, because it's been sitting there for so long. And I'll never forget, hitting the 100K mark, and Grant was with me and another guy, Matt, at the time. And it was just awesome. And from that really has helped shape, I think, more than anything, what I've gone on to do, because it gave me the confidence to really push myself and to push my limits. And I was pushed that day, like getting to that 17th. And I think, Dave, I almost remember, because I remember you being there, and I think you might have said, or you'd been there and you were going to come back down, I think, or something. And the call was like, how much longer do we think she's going to go for? And it's like, I think she's still going. And then it was like, no, I was done. Yeah. And it all ended. And I think everyone was getting ready to get the beers and the pizza in to sit and watch. So I really pushed myself that day. But as I said, it gave me the confidence to also to keep pushing myself. And I've gone on to do quite a few ultras where it's just me on my own. And, I've done up at Heffron Park, I did a 12-hour the following year, like, where I literally was just like, you know what, I'm just going to go see how far I can run for 12 hours. And, there was no event attached to it. It was just, let's go. And I had come up with a figure 8 to do. And yeah, so I think that was a huge part. And as I said, just understanding how much the running community will get behind you and support you for no other game but to see someone do something that they want to do and help to push them to do further. So I think for me now, when I'm coaching or running with others, like, I want to do what I can to help push someone to do that little bit more than they thought they could, or, sign up for an event that they never thought they could do, or run 4 times a week instead of 3 times a week because that's what they want to do. It doesn't always have to be event related, or it could be that they just want to commit to to getting out the door X number of times a week. So I think that's come from that run.
Well, yeah, you've got some ticker and you've got some grit and tenacity, and I think that's the thing about that first Centennial Park thing. And it was during COVID, and there was a lot of unknowns, and as you said, everyone's like, "What is she doing?" And we all rocked up there, and even that achievement of 17, it didn't really matter because for us, you were a pioneer, like in a lot of ways. And I remember, yeah, I did. I remember rocking up. I think I came straight after work, and we were ready to run into the night and kind of thing. And then, yeah, again, as you said, the following year, just because you could, you went and ran figure eights nonstop around Heffron, and we all came down and went, "What's Lisa doing?" She's running around in circles at Heffron Park. That was Lisa. But obviously that's spawned some big ideas, and you talk about that community. I remember when you were training for, I think it was the 24-hour track ultra in Canberra, and you wanted to do some night training. So what did we do? We all rallied together and we met you at midnight down outside your house there, and we all went and ran for 3 hours in the middle of the night, just around the streets in Maroubra, as you do. Like it was.
And that's what it showed me too, is I think that sometimes you just have to be okay to ask as well. We put that call out, like, does anyone want to come? I've never run at night before. Does anyone want to come run at night? And Dave went, yep, I will. And another mate, Zach. And yeah, so I think there's a lot of people are willing to help others, I think, which is really nice. And I think, for us, and I'll go there, you mentioned as a race director, I always wanted to put on, I always thought Heffron Park would make a brilliant location for a backyard ultra. And finally got to realize that dream a couple of years ago too. So now having held 2 events there, because we wanted to provide something. I wanted to give others an opportunity to see what they could do and to push themselves. Yeah, which is nice.
Calvin, have you signed up for a backyard ultra yet?
No, if it's a backyard trail running, then yes.
Well, there's a few of them. There's a few of them.
Yeah. So Lisa, so you had obviously you start running backyard ultra yourself, and then you start to get the community to start running with you. And then at what point did you realize that I can actually create a proper ultra, not ultra, I mean, well, backyard ultra event? So what sort of change your mindset, like from as a runner to a race director? Because obviously there's a big difference, right?
Yeah. So again, I was down doing Ultra Trail Kosciuszko the first year. I do remember.
Yeah.
Yep, I was fortunate to be part of that first event.
Yep.
Okay, that was the one where we had the magical start.
Yeah.
Snow. I don't think I'll
Yep.
ever. That was awesome, and it was great. And I remember afterwards sitting with a few people, and we got chatting. And I said, I can't believe that Sydney doesn't have a backyard ultra yet. And Kerno, who was at the dinner, he's like, "Yeah, you're right. We don't have one." And he goes, "What do you think?" And I said, "Oh, I'd love to put one on." And I think it was having someone that say, "Well, why don't you? Why don't?" And he was like, "Why don't we? Like, let's look into it." And I always think, sometimes you got to be careful what you put out into the universe. Someone will hear. And yeah, and that's what it was. And it was happening, and I think we had and Chris and Greta Truscott with Regia Brothers were at the dinner too. And I remember Grant just shaking his head going, "Oh my God, what is she doing now? Like, what is happening?" And we got chatting and yeah, and then came up with it. And look, it took time. I must admit, what started out as kind of like they talk about, getting the napkin, the back of the napkin, and it's like, oh, yeah, we could do this and we'll do it at Heffron Park and, around this date and so on. And then realizing that you need council approvals and all sorts of things. And it took a little bit longer. And, and at the time, so we ended up being the first backyard ultra in the eastern suburbs. because obviously the 180 Cadence guys got their event up in St. Ives just before ours. Because obviously they had the similar sort of thought, I think. Why isn't there a backyard ultra? And, but what I love about the backyard ultra is that it really is an opportunity for people to test themselves. There's something very lovely about at the start of every hour, the race restarts. And, I've always said running is a true leveler. It doesn't matter what you do outside of running. When you are next to someone running side by side, there's a shared, you're sharing something there that, whether it's emotion or just the pain that you're in or whatever it is. And it doesn't really matter what else is going on. So the backyard ultra is very much that. And that there are lots of different ways to run a backyard ultra in terms of, whether you put elevation in it, whether you make it trail, whether it's road, whatever it is. And I think that, there's room for lots of them, and it's great. And I think, what we've created, we've done two years of it now at Heffron Park. Ours is called I'm Still Standing, around March time. And what I absolutely love about that is the people we have got to know through doing that event, be it other race directors or just people in our running community that we would never have met otherwise, is phenomenal. And I couldn't, I just, it really is something that has become very, it's just a real highlight for me that we created that and provided a space. Our first year we had 100 runners on the start line, and we had 64 runners achieved a personal best. And it's not to say they wouldn't have done that somewhere else in terms of business, but that we created a space that they could do that at our event on that day, I think is really lovely. And we had similar figures this year for it as well. So, and I love that format enables that. But I think, we had a moment in our backyard ultra this year. Dave, I think you were, because Dave's our MC for it, and I think he was there for it at the time because it was on the Saturday. And, we had one runner, trying to come in, and everyone was kind of getting ready in the corral. We were down to the second, 2-minute warning, and we were like, oh, here he comes. And everyone just it erupted, and everyone was cheering and kind of Dave was like, give space. Everyone sort of parted, but it's like a rock star coming in. And I just thought, wow, that was awesome. So it's those moments that are really cool. And but I think, just very fortunate to now be able to be a part of the running community in so many different ways, I think is really lovely. And feel very privileged and very, it's warms my heart that I get to be a part of the community in so many different ways.
So one thing I also want to touch on, Lisa, obviously, the backyard ultra is one of your highlight, I guess, in your running career, right? And you've done another race, which is, I think, when I first heard, I was like, how can they possibly run from coast to coasty, right? Yeah, tell us a little bit about that one, and what was your mind? I mean, I want to understand the first time when you run that, did you have any so-called pain cave, and how did you overcome that sort of that experience compared to, say, backyard ultra? Like when you stop at 17 lap, you must be in pain. Unless there's other reason why you want to stop. I just want to know, okay, that two type of ultra very, very different. If you just share that with me. Yeah.
And just to add to that, Kelvin, I mean, I guess that's off the back of what Lisa was just saying in terms of community, and great question. Is the community has evolved within running, and obviously COVID maybe did play a part in that. As we said, at the beginning of COVID, we didn't even know what a backyard ultra was, and now look how many backyard ultras are, and the phenomenon that is. But there are some original ultras out there, and one of those being the Kosciuszko, and same with 6 foot. You mentioned that before. 6 foot's been around for a long time, and the Kosciuszko, and that's a test of endurance unlike any other, because we're talking 240 plus kilometers from the down there to Eden, all the way to the highest tippy point of Australia, um, you started ticking off several of these original events to coincide. And so I want to come back to Kelvin's question in terms of the difference between running a backyard ultra and this. But I guess there is some more pure type ultras out there, shall we call them, for want of a better term, because this then came on your bucket list, like Hume Hovell and all of those ones as well. Um, so there's two parts. There's my question and then Kelvin's question.
Yeah, I guess I think there is all for me, and I'll speak for me. I can only ever speak for me. I think there is always a moment in an event, in a race, in a training run, whatever it might be, where it hurts. And I think that to me is where the magic lies. And no, it's, well, how do I deal with that when it does hurt? Like, what am I going to do to get past that? And it comes at different times, and you never can always predict when it's going to happen. But I think for me, and this is something I've learned over time, like, certainly going into longer events these days, I'm a little bit more prepared. Got a few more things that I've tried in the past that might help. But I think for me, my why to running ultras hasn't changed. It's evolved, but it hasn't changed too much from the simplicity of just wanting to push myself. And so when it does hurt, it's like, okay, well, this is what you wanted. Like, you wanted to see how could you push yourself to go further. And I guess I look at each one and, things like, and you can, I take the experience from each. So, doing Ultra Trail 100 last year, so UTA 100 back in 2024, there were a couple of moments where I sort of was really hurting. I was like, yeah, but hang on, you've done Coast to Kosci. Like, you've done further than this. Like, you can push further. You've got more in you. Or, and likewise that my first Coast to Kosci, there were, we battled everything that year. Like, we almost didn't get to, there was a possibility that we might not even be able to start that year because of the horrendous weather. And Greg and Mickey did a fabulous, just an amazing job to get up on the start line. And, we had a car interlude and things like that in order to be able to do that. And I just think, there some of those moments, it was like, yeah, but hang on, you've run for 24 hours around a track. Like, you can do this. And I'm not, there's a lot that you go into, but you dig deep and just find a way. Find my way to push through. I'm a big believer in mantras, I have to say, huge believer in mantras and having a single focus. And, certainly my second Coast to Kosci in 2024, there were some moments that I really had to dig deep there. And I can remember heading up towards Charlotte Pass, and I was using this mantra, relentlessly moving forward, but it got more and more difficult to say. It was a little bit too long. And I just turned around and I was like, this is hard. This is so hard, so hard. And then I went, I want that second pin. And it just became, I want that second pin. And I just repeated that over and over and over until I got to the top. So yeah, I don't, there's no clear cut answer, but I think the knowing that you are going to get into some tough times in a run, in an event is a big part of doing it, because it's being an opportunity to prove to myself that I can do this, and I'm able to push through and problem solve and just get past those moments and embrace those moments too. As I said to you, early on, the simplicity of running, that's all I have to do. And so sometimes I just bring it back to that. So when it's really tough in a moment, in a race, it's like, yeah, but this is what you wanted. Like, you get to do this. You want to just, you want the simplicity of just having to run today. So let's move. Let's keep moving forward. I like that idea of the forward progress. It's just that's what we're doing. We're moving forward, whatever that might be towards.
Yeah, I love that. At least I think when you mentioned like one thing focus, like is it what you're saying? Um yeah, just relentlessly like make sure that like you've laser focus on that. And you just keep repeating that in your head, like you talking to yourself, hey Lisa, you can do it. Like focus on that, focus on that. Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Yeah, my mantra for the recent UTA 100 was for this year, it was power up because I knew there was going to be a lot of ups. And I was like, all right, I just need to power. I need power going up. And yeah, I said that a lot, a lot of times. So yeah, I think that's but also, as I said, just knowing there's going to be some tough times. I think, if we go into these ultras feeling that, well, it doesn't have to be an ultra even, but anything that anything that means something to us, we know that it's potentially going to be a tough time, or whatever the distance is or the length of time, and being able to be comfortable with that, and to to be a little bit prepared for it and how you might deal with it. There's still lots of unknown, but it's how you come out of that, and then you can reflect back and you go, you know what, I was really strong in that moment because I got through that. So now what else, what can I do next? What's the next thing to challenge me or try and push myself? Yeah.
So speaking of that, and I probably wouldn't ask this question of most people, especially I didn't know them, but you did touch on your age before. So are you a believer that uh, yeah, life gets better with, or like a fine wine, that we age, that we get better with age, because certainly, and that comes back to the Kosciuszko thing as well, is because this is my point, is that you are ticking off now some of the iconics. You're ticking off the big races, the endurance races that are testing people that are different. As we said, you were one of the first to embrace, I think, in my knowledge of that backyard ultra scene. So you're saying keep challenging yourself.
Yeah,
What's next?
definitely.
What's next
Yeah,
for
I
Lisa Sherman?
absolutely believe we need to keep challenging ourselves. And I've got lots of things that I want to do. I am I am participating in my first 48 hour. That's the next one for me. So doing Steve Redford's Southern Sydney Track Ultra, the 48 hour at the end of September, which will be good. So
Wow.
I'm intrigued on that one. But again, when I think about it, I had the idea bubbling away. I tend to have lots of little ideas bubbling away as I'm doing events because I always like to have something ready to go. And as I was doing Coast to Cosy last year, I'd already had the thought around 48 hours. I was like, wow, 48 hours, like that's a long time. And then when I finished Coast to Cosy, sort of 41 hours, I was like, okay, well, it's only 7 more hours from that. So I think that's doable. That's a push, but I'll give it a go. And as soon as I could sign up, I was signing up. And yeah, I got there's a few milers coming up and things like that for next year and the end of this year and next year. And I've got definitely some ideas for myself, I guess, coming back a little bit to I love the idea of it's always a journey that we're on. And so I've got some things that I would like to do that I think of more as being a journey run. So not necessarily a set event, but something that I sort of set up for myself. And I guess that sort of comes back to what I've done a lot over the years when I've been training for things is, I want to go see how far I can run for 12 hours at Heffron Park. Well, there's a few places I'd like to journey to, but do it on foot. And so, yeah, we'll see what 26 and 27 hold. But for now, let's go get loopy around a track.
I was going to say, Kelvin, what words of advice have you got once you start running beyond 40 hours? You've been there recently. What words of advice have you got for Lisa?
Yeah, expecting to see like all these cartoon character. Yeah, it's certainly interesting experience. I mean, to start hallucinating, and you know that they are not real, but you just sort of like kind of keep pushing it, and
Embrace it.
embrace it. Yeah,
Know it might happen and embrace it.
exactly.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And I must admit, I imagine, having not been there, but I imagine that on a track, it's going to be quite different to being in trail as well. I mean, I know you were seeing your rocks and trees moving there, Kelvin,
That's
but
right. Yeah.
on a track where there's probably less things to concentrate on, obviously, yeah, that'll be very different again. How do you prepare for that, Lisa?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I will do a lot of training just round and round in circles or loops or I don't shy away I quite enjoy just picking a path and happily do out and backs on it, whatever the distance might be. So I'll do that, often without any sort of extra stimulus, as in, no headphones for anything, no music and things like that, just to sort of really get in and, yeah, just a few different ways of distracting the mind and things like that. I think a lot of it, pardon me, I really do believe, really believe that so much of it, our physically, I think we really can keep going. It's the mind that ends up sort of putting the brakes on us. And so I think the more we can work on that side of it, and what's the saying? Get uncomfortable being uncomfortable. Yeah, sorry, get comfortable being uncomfortable. So the more we can do that, I'm looking forward to actually switching, because I've been doing a lot of hills, had been doing a lot of elevation and getting out in the trails, and I'm now looking forward to actually switching and finding a few shorter circuits to run loops around for a bit, as I prepare for the 48 hour.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you're coming down to Jarvis Bay Ultra as well?
I am, yes,
Oh,
yes.
awesome.
So yeah, be down there. Grant and I are going to do the 53K run together, which will be great. So yeah, which will be really cool. So we haven't done an event side by side before. We've both been in similar events, but where we've run separately. So this will be good to run together.
In the bush too, can you believe it?
Oh.
Actually, little gratuitous plug here for a moment. On the Friday night, folks, if you are listening in and you are coming down to Jarvis Bay Ultra, the Cowbell is going to be hosting a live podcast, which will feature a athlete panel. And so, yeah, very exciting. So, Lisa, it'll be good to see you down there. And folks, keep an eye out on all the necessary channels and social media for that coming up. But that'll be Kelvin's going to be there. I'll be there. And yeah, so there's you go. There's a little side plug for our live podcast on the Friday.
It's going to be great, and just to have a new event as well. And
Yeah.
it's such beautiful area. Like as soon as we heard about that one, we were just like, right, we're signing up. Like it didn't matter, we weren't sure what distance. We didn't really know the distances. Had heard it was coming. We're just like, yeah, just beautiful area, and I think there's a lot of excitement building about it. So yeah, it's literally 3.5 weeks we're down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3.5 feet. Yeah, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, Kelvin's got his fingers in a few pies down there. You're also running, aren't you, Kelvin? Are you
No,
running?
I'm not running. I'm not running.
Okay.
Yeah. If they're Maula, we won. Maybe one, two, two
Sorry,
left.
you're running another thing down there. It's all right. It's but I mean, again, like I agree with you, Lisa. The fact that it's the first time ever that a ultra trail has been run in Bottery. So it's pretty exciting, and it's also a community event, and it's got a lot of groundswell and a lot of there is definitely a lot of excitement about it. It'll be a good opportunity to run somewhere different and do a different event. So pretty exciting for that as well. Kelvin, do you have sorry, we didn't rehearse this beforehand, but do you have your questions, your new cowbell questions to throw at Lisa?
I don't have any fire chart question today. Yeah.
Oh, you don't have them today. Okay, that's all right. That's all right. That was a
a bit
special.
rusty tonight. Yeah, sorry.
That was a special edition back there for Mel. She got that one as a bit of a pilot back there before we did that. Look, Lisa, you do need to go and put your coaching hat on in a moment, and so we won't hold you up on that. But we we do love hearing your journey and your story, but we also love hearing what your cowbell moment is. So this one was the one that we threw at you already. Do you have a cowbell moment that you can share with us?
Look, I've got lots of
I'm
them, but
sure.
I have to say, I think the one that really sticks out at the moment is finishing my first Coast to Cosy. That was 2023. And I just remember that year it was an inclement finish and we just had horrendous weather. And as I was with Grant was pacing me at the time, and just there's a moment where so we were finishing at Charlotte Pass, and just as you just sort of come around this little bend, and there was just all the cars were lined up and everyone there, and everyone just started clapping and everything, and I just immediately had tears come down. Just like I knew I was going to finish it, but that was that moment then that I was like, I have done this. I've done it, and yeah, to cross that finish, and Mickey and Greg standing there, and it's something I'll never forget that one. And it was a real, and I guess we could talk for hours, but I felt, I guess at that moment I was still like, I still couldn't believe that I had been given a spot in Coast to Cosy. I think I still,
Mm.
and to finish it, I just sort of thought, yeah, like this is what I want to be doing. Can I do this every day? Can I do this runs every day? So that was a very special moment, and I think yeah, it'll be hard to top finishing your first Coast to Cosy, I'd say.
Because it is a really special endurance event. It's unlike anything else. And that's what I
Very
was,
hard to describe.
yeah.
You've really got to be, yeah, it's just such a family, and very, very fortunate to have been back there again last year. And, I'd love to go back again in the future. It's just the people, it's everyone. And the road, the area you're traveling across as well. Yeah, it really is like nothing else. And yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame we don't have more of those sort of point to point type ultras across Australia. I think, yeah.
I
Because
think
the
that's a new idea come to your mind now, Lisa, is it? Like what you
uh,
just said, what you just said
no.
just remind me,
I said,
actually,
watch this
that's an
space between
opportunity.
27.
Well,
No.
no, Kelvin, you're bang on, mate. You're bang on because let me tell you, behind doors, Lisa and I have had conversations. So,
Mm.
but like, and I guess Lisa, and I'm not just saying this because you've completed two, you've received two Akubra hats.
No, one
Um,
Akubra, two pins. You only
sorry,
get one Akubra.
sorry. Okay, my bad, my bad. Um, but I guess in the ultra community and those that are part of the Coast to Cosy family and that have ticked that off, it's a very humbling race and or event, endurance event. And everyone that I know that has done it, it such a humbling experience. And I think everyone that I know has done it has been really, just really genuine, humble, down to earth people. And there's no egos.
Mm.
Okay, I guess that's one way of putting it. There's no egos. It- it's not like a normal event in that sense, because it is just testing the human capacity, and so you're now part of that, and you are a well deserving recipient of both of those pins and one Akuba, but to be in that uh, yeah, held in that high esteem with everyone that's completed that, I think it's pretty special.
Yeah, thank you.
So, so I don't blame you for picking that as your cowbell moment.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's good. But I've got lots. Free running moments, a cowbell moment. No, just kidding. No, but they do come up there. I say this all the time to anyone that will listen, and the ladies I get to run with, and the wonderful legends they are. I'm always telling them, not every run is great, but you always feel great after every run. And I really do believe that. So, yeah.
Well, that's a pretty
Very
damn
good.
good mantra
Yes.
to sign off on. Lisa, thank you. We'll let you go and do your thing this evening, but thanks so much for being one of our extraordinary everyday guests here on the Cowbell.
Wonderful. Thank you. Enjoyed the chat.
Thank you, Lisa. Bye.